Hi, everybody. Steve Albrecht from Library 2.0. Thanks for joining me for this expert interview session today. I'm talking with Christian Riehl. He is a homeless outreach coordinator in California. He has done a lot of work in the homeless population, and he is one of those subject matter experts that I tend to want to talk to and lean on for advice about what we can do for the library environment. Thanks, Christian, for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Good morning.
So when we look at homelessness as an overall issue in the country, it is certainly complex and it is certainly not one easy answer. But I think one of the things the library people would like to know from you is, from your background and experience, they see a wide range of homeless people coming into the library environment. Some of them are cooperative and quiet and don't cause any problems whatsoever, and a small number are really problematic. And sometimes they're problematic based on drug and alcohol use or mental health concerns, or both. What's your best advice for how we deal with those problematic homeless people that come in on an over and over kind of frequent flyer, regular basis into the library environment?
So on the frequent flyer side, usually they look for phone chargers or outlets to plug their cell phones in, and also the use of facilities. That's kind of like what the pattern that we've seen. And for the problematic ones, it's kind of find if you identify or your staff actually sees someone who is the constant flyer or the constant consumer of the library that may cause a ruckus. I would, I would actually ask them to if there's need any services, or try to connect them with services in regards of homelessness or treatment. And that's kind of like the safe place to do it. And there are times, I just remembered right now too. Usually, in South LA, there's a thing called public spaces that the library actually contracts out a room specifically for people who are experiencing homelessness, and they could actually do the intake, the outreach on a certain part of the library in the room, and they can identify some sort of a plan for them in either getting homeless services, or getting treatment, or even getting mental health, or even just someone to talk to. So I just remember that right now.
So in a perfect world, that room would be staffed by social workers from the county, correct?
Correct, or a nonprofit. Usually they're nonprofit that actually comes and uses the facilities.
We're seeing in libraries more and more opportunities for social workers to come into libraries and work there full time, or work there on a part-time basis, or on a grant funded, or sometimes we use graduate students in psychology and social work programs to come into libraries and do their hours. Do you see that as a trend that's on the uptick? I'm hoping so, but I don't have anything to measure as to whether we're seeing more use of social workers in the library environment.
As far as interns, or for full-time career?
Just, library people having access to social workers that are actually coming into the library and working for the library system. So I know that San Francisco does that, Denver, some other libraries around the United States, where they have actual social workers who are employed by the county working in the library as their office.
Yes. So, like I said, it's called public spaces at our side, and they have a certain time and certain time of day that they're in the library specifically just for that. And if they need to extend those hours, such say they find a client towards the end of the day that needs a little more help, they'll actually stay with the client or reschedule an appointment for them for either intake or services that the person might be interested in. And yeah, that is part of the solution down here in Southern California, and it's being utilized even not just on libraries, but as well as trains, subways, or even buses. So that's why the entity is called public spaces. So wherever people are congregated, or the public congregates, that's where some of the social workers are.
So if you look at some of the resources that library staff members can get, whether it comes from experts like you, or social workers, or homeless people that run homeless shelters, what do you see that we can provide to library people, like hygiene kits, or bus passes, or places where people can go and store their belongings? What kind of what kind of tools are you seeing that people can get or homeless people can get services from the library in terms of actual physical things that can help them?
The best way is water and hygiene kits, and believe it or not, socks.
Okay.
Socks is very important. A lot of people like, why socks? I don't know. They just like socks. So socks, hygiene kits, and water, basic, and even just like a non-perishable snack, like a protein bar, not a protein bar, but the granola bars, in that sense.
Sure.
And but storing items, I would not recommend storing items because you'll never know what's inside those items that they carry, and because of there could be bed bugs or other things that might might make a mess inside, like you never know what they carry inside. So
Sure.
but storing their possessions, I would not recommend.
Yeah, I guess what I meant there was is there places that libraries can tell the homeless to go to be able to store their possessions? Like, in this part of town there's lockers, or this part of town there's storage for your
Yeah,
stuff for the day, and that libraries could give to the patrons as information, not necessarily storing their stuff. Does that happen where there's a place for them
got it.
to put their things?
That one is not happening yeah, that was not happening in our area.
Okay.
So I haven't seen the only lockers I've seen is maybe like a bus terminal, and that's far in between that I've seen. I
Sure.
haven't seen that in a while.
Sure. When you look at the police response to the library, oftentimes, and I've seen this in my work across the board, sometimes the police are non-existent, and sometimes the police are too much in the library. According to the staff members, they're sort of intrusive to the library and the operations of it, because they feel the police intimidate the patrons, homeless or not. And I'm always looking for kind of the best boundary and the best practices for cops coming into the library. And I think one of the issues that library staffers don't understand is how difficult, and this is where I'm looking for your expertise, how difficult it is to talk to people that have mental health and substance abuse issues at that exact moment.
So when we do that, so when we get those calls, right, we always have a relationship with the police department, or in our case, sheriff's department. So having a designated team that actually responds or specializes in each in an area specifically to deal with homelessness, that is your key issue. The reason why is that those specialized deputies on our side actually will get the call, and then they will refer the call to us, and we go simultaneously. So they're on standby, and we go inside and assess the situation. If we needed to escalate a little more, then we'll bring them in. But we are the one who engages first.
So in
So a
Los
relationship
Angeles,
with your local.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in Los Angeles
No,
County,
go ahead.
that's the host, right? Homeless Outreach Services team for the sheriff's department. Is that correct?
Yes, but the host team is county-wide,
Okay.
so and they're also short-staffed. So even the host team will have difficulty doing those calls for services. So like I said, it's the local stations that actually can assist quicker than the host team, because the host team they're all over the county, and specifically they're not responding to calls for service. They're specifically going into homeless encampments, and a library is technically not a homeless encampment or RV encampment. So it's usually the specialized deputies on our side that actually can assist. And each station has a specific deputy or deputies who actually respond to those calls.
What do you think the average patrol officer, patrol deputy doesn't get about homelessness, doesn't understand about the homeless population? What do you think the gaps in their knowledge are most about?
Depending on how long they're in line, it's because technically homelessness is not a criminal matter. That's not criminal unless they're committing a crime. Then that's a different story. But if someone asks them to, hey, can you remove this person in my property? Um, the deputies could actually ask them to leave. But if it's in a private area, if that's a public area, they're a patron, that's the difficult part. So there's no the balance there is how good the deputy is to diffuse the situation and offer a solution versus kicking a person out. So depending on the tools that he has or knowledge, that's the that's kind of like the game changer. On our side, we actually train some of the deputies, and they have our numbers. And when they get a call, they would actually piggyback with us and ask them, "Hey, I got this guy in the library, or I got this guy who needs help. How can we help him?" So by doing that, makes it a more humanitarian way versus arresting your way in a sense of arresting your way out of the problem. So we all work coincide with each other. That's why a relationship with law enforcement, the county workers who assist with homelessness or nonprofits, those are your key elements. Those are your key ingredients to serve the population that is in dire need of help.
So if we look at two parts of the homeless population, one have substance abuse issues, stimulant drugs, methamphetamine, stuff like that, and opiates as one problematic part of the population. And the second is mental health. And obviously the third category is when they have both of those life issues. Let's start with the substance abuse population. What is your best strategy for communication, de-escalation, communication skills for library people when we're dealing with people that are under the influence?
So there's a time and date. So a lot of people don't understand that there's a time and date that a lot of substance abuse is occurring in the homeless population. That's usually the first of the month when the clients will actually get their money, so they use their money in for drugs. So the first of the month, it's almost like you can't really talk to anybody. As you progress along the month, they have less money, and it's a little easier for them to talk to. So in regard to that, again, it's also are we talking about with no staff available, no social workers or no law enforcement?
Correct.
Is that what you want to? Is that
correct.
the answer you want here?
Yeah, just the employee population in the library, trying to help that population that's under the influence.
Got it. So just know some of the signs. If someone's tweaking out, or I call them pterodactyl arms, that one might cause a ruckus, and that's when you use your good judgment, whether to talk to that person, engage that person, and that is, yeah, because that's unpredictable. That is very unpredictable. And then if a person is actually a little calmer, or like heroin is usually a nodder, so they usually fall asleep. Just if you're gonna talk to them, make sure that you look around the area if there's any needles surrounding the area. Sometimes we like to leave Narcan with people or businesses just in case something happens to them, or they find somebody passed out, so they could Narcan them. And it's use your best judgment. I mean, I'm trying to figure out situations of what
How about
how we could
alcohol?
approach it, but
How about alcohol
honestly,
users?
it's use your benches.
Yeah, alcohol users, a different set of strategies.
Alcohol users, if they're not, if they're not, if they're drinking, if they're drinking, then you might want to ask them to leave the premises. And if they get really aggressive, that's, like I said, usual and good your judgment as well. And I'm sorry, I'm rambling on and on. I'm trying to figure out examples
Sure.
on the top of my head.
I guess the second part of that would go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, the second part of that would be, if we look at people that have mental health issues, it could be depression, it could be psychosis, schizophrenia. I've also been told by homeless outreach people like you that there's a large degree of undiagnosed autism in the homeless population. Has that been your experience as well?
I believe I haven't seen it personally, but I've seen in an adult manner, not really, but with children, yes. So those are those we actually refer out to the school to get an IEP, which is an individual educational plan. And that's when we talk to the school and we have a plan for them to get their social security benefits if the child's eligible, as well as trying to see what services the mom or the family is interested in. But as far as adults, they usually have a diagnosis early on in their childhood.
What do you think is the most difficult homeless, in terms of homeless population? What's the most difficult mental illness for library staffs to deal with? Psychosis, schizophrenia, out of touch with reality, threats of violence. What's the most difficult for them to deal with?
It's all of the above. Threat for violence is that's the one thing that will always perk people up, because I'm going to kill you, I'm going to hurt you, and then that becomes more personal, not just an attack in the library, but it becomes more a threat to the individual who's making contact with the person. So most of them is the personal threat, because now it's going to be a fight or flight, or I'm going to call the cops, and then if the cops come in, let's see how long they take. And I think that's the most difficult one.
And what are your best communication tools for those people that are severely mentally ill? Space and distance, not touching them, not touching their stuff, using careful tones, using careful questions, careful instructions, that type of thing. That all makes sense. Plus what else?
I actually wear a funny T-shirt usually when I talk to people, like a cat T-shirt. When you wear a cat T-shirt, it's more entertaining or something funny. It kind of diffuses the situation that you're trying to. It puts their guard down because you have a cat T-shirt. Not everybody likes to wear a cat T-shirt. So when I wear a cat T-shirt, there's two purposes of it. If I wear a cat T-shirt, it's people like pets. Not a lot of people like cats all the time. I sometimes have a dog T-shirt, so they like to conversate what I'm wearing, and it's an icebreaker. Number two, if I get in trouble and I call the station, I'm on 135th and Broadway, I'm wearing a cat shirt, click, I give my location and my description. What they're gonna look for, a guy in a cat shirt. So I try to use icebreakers. And if I look in their area, if I see a lot of bicycles, oh, you're a bike mechanic. So I look at the things that surround them, and I apply that in the initial point of conversation, just to open the door.
So common ground.
Common ground, correct.
So with in terms of asking for compliance with people with mental health issues, I mean, I know there's a lot of anxiety in that population, a lot of fear. They don't like being touched, or their personal space being violated. I mean, those are all rules that you think library people ought to follow in terms of space and distance and things like that.
Yes, don't touch your items. Don't touch your belongings, because nobody likes to get touch your belongings unless they ask for help for it. But make sure you wear proper safety, like PPE, that whatever the protocol is. Because, like I said, you never know what they're carrying. You don't want to get pricked or poked, or all of a sudden you have something on you. So just like I said, use best practice, good judgment, best practices.
When you look at back to substance abusers for a second, you talked about stimulant drug users and then people that are kind of on the nod from opiates. I also think about people that are in withdrawal from either of those drugs, or when withdrawal from alcohol, that makes them kind of erratic. Their drug of choice they need to use at 4 to 6 hour intervals, and are not able to get it, and that makes them problematic or erratic or really difficult. Has that been your experience in seeing people in withdrawal? They're just hard to handle.
Yes, though, especially the alcohol ones, because I think you could die a little quicker than alcohol. Than you'll die quicker with alcohol versus opiates or drugs. And when that withdrawal, it's gnarly. I'll put it that way. It's gnarly, and like excuse me. And there's sometimes I've seen social workers, because they work with certain clients, that they'll literally buy them alcohol just to calm them down before they go to a treatment or detox.
Wow.
Or some sort of care.
Wow.
Just because of the alcohol could kill them quicker.
When you look at the sense of resources that library people may be able to make referrals to, I think sometimes they may know that it's the county or social workers or or how would they get a hold of folks like you that have special expertise in homelessness, just in the United States in general? Is it connected through the county? Is it grant funded homeless programs? Is it shelters? What's the best way? If you're a library person, who would you call if it was beyond the social workers? Who would be your go-to for beyond just social workers or police?
So I'm going to give an example of LA County. So LA County is broken down into supervisory districts. And then each supervisory district has a lead in the area. So the board of supervisors is the one that runs the county. And each supervisor districts, we have a thing that we call service provider area, or SPA. And each district has a lead of each SPA. I think we have 8 SPAs in our district, and there's always a lead. And then when you find who the lead is, you could actually look on the website of the county website, like say with ours. I'll give you our example. Ours is Supervisor District 2. When you put Supervisor District 2, it'll come in SPA 6 and SPA 8. Each SPA has a different lead, and it'll tell you the services that are available and who to contact and to get services. We also have 211 down here, and 211 will also assist in getting services for people over the phone. And it's almost like a yellow pages, but in my opinion, that our 211 is not the greatest. So it's still going to the website for the county is the best way to go.
So in most cities and counties, the county is kind of the default for mental health, for substance abuse, for homeless services. And across the country, you would say most times it's the county is the default service provider for the cities and for for people.
The county, yes, but there's also so the county provides funding to this multi. They call it E6. It's a multidisciplinary team. So in each team, there is a mental health specialist, substance abuse, peer advocate, case manager, and even a nurse that drives around specifically looking or responding to calls for individuals who's needing help, which is also part of the team that I called public spaces earlier.
Right.
So there are teams that rove around in our area,
and
we do have a central dispatch that if an individual needs help, it goes to the coordinator. Like I said, remember each SPA has a coordinator.
Right.
The calls will go directly to them and will be distributed out. The response time, unfortunately, is between same day or 24 hours or 72 hours of response time.
Do you think libraries would benefit from calling individual homeless shelters and saying, can you give us some advice, some information? Can you send somebody here? Can we meet? Can we talk about some services we may be able to provide to a homeless population that comes in here that comes through you? I mean, is that a reasonable, we talked about the hygiene kits and the socks and things like that. Would that be reasonable for library leaders to reach out to homeless shelters nearby and say, how can we partner on some things?
Absolutely. That's probably the key, because now you have versus hoping that someone will pick up your call. Now you have a person who you actually connect with. And that is absolutely crucial for both in order to become a team.
So just a final question for you, and I appreciate your feedback and your information. Do you feel hopeful about the direction that we're going, not just in California, but in the United States, or do you feel pessimistic? I mean, I guess because I look at the population so often, as probably you do, I feel that, the victories are small sometimes, and also the progress is small, and it's a tough population to deal with. So I don't feel all that optimistic about immediate solutions, but I mean, what do you feel like in terms of the future and hope?
Ooh, it's difficult. It's really difficult to gauge, but like I said, I feel the same way as you do. We get little victories here and there, but eventually, and hoping that they don't come back into their situation. But it's difficult. It's difficult on our side because we want to help everybody, but we can't force them to get help.
Anything else to wrap up?
No, sorry, I just go in around in circles just because of my flu
Yeah.
or my So I'm usually a little more prepared. But
yeah, you're
like
very
I,
helpful for everybody, and I appreciate it. So, Christian, thanks a lot. Let me go off the recording.